Right.
I got several bird totems, but the gorilla is my prime totem, coming from my father's line.
Right.
My mother's line, it would have been the elephant, but I'm like my father's son. I'm a mama's boy, but I'm my daddy's son. That's the monkey riding in the town on the elephant. They ain't know he was gonna grow up to be a fucking gorilla. All the time they thought he was a chimp and tried to treat him like a chump until he bite their face off.
Well, what Jay-Z said, little monkey nigga turned gorilla. That's what Jay-Z said. A reasonable doubt. So C Dick said like remote viewing. So when you talk about this totem animal, and you talked about this remote viewing through the totem out, right?
Yeah. Only they can see in real time anything that's in eye shot of them.
Yeah. When
I go to the zoo, I can feel the gorilla heart beating wherever I'm at in the zoo.
Yeah.
I'm clubbing close enough proximity, I can feel his heartbeat. The irony of it is certain dudes that was locked up, when I got close to them, I could feel their heartbeat the same way. It's kind of spooky when you first experience it, but after you figure out what you're going through, it makes perfect sense. It's a sympathetic link. From a common totem. Like if I be around lions, that's my father's totem as a Leo, but his family line is the giraffe off his mother line. Right? So I can tune in to them animals as a totem animal, but I don't have the same sensation that I get from the gorilla, where I can actually feel his heartbeat if I'm in close enough proximity to him.
Yeah, I'm interested. This is some interesting stuff. You know what I always had? Ever since I was a kid, I always had a parakeet. Always had a parakeet in my house. I got one now. Always kept the parakeet, man. I love
that's your familiar.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, the familiar is different from a totem because it has to physically be in your life. Man is a dog.
Your familiar is a dog. Yeah.
Here go the crazy part. You might never hear your parakeet talk, but they can talk, right? It might be some danger coming, and he might say, "Rich, danger, rich, danger." You'd be like, "Where the fuck that come from?"
Out of nowhere, right? Yeah.
Listen to that motherfucker if he start talking. I don't care if he tell you that the sky finna turn blue, purple, green. If he start talking and he ain't never talked before, he not talking from himself.
Damn.
You got to coach them to talk. The parakeets don't like people to know they can talk. So unless it's something that they have to say, the spirit is so strong they can't hold it back, then they bust out and tell you. Then you got some that's prima donnas. They like to dance and talk. And they chatterboxes. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Parakeet is the budgie. The budgie is the buddy.
Right. So is there, I asked you about the dragons. Is there any recorded history from what you read of a previous rover model that we use to navigate the 3D realm besides the Earth body? Like, did we always use like you said, the Allah, the arm, leg, arm, head? Or was there another form?
This is the most efficient structure that we put together. It's about efficiency.
Right.
Like the elephant is a large mammal. It's hard on the joints. It's less efficient over time. Where you got the whale, don't need to have good, strong knees because he's in the water. So it'd be more efficient for the whale to function in the water than for it to function on land. So what becomes efficient? The human is a composite of the most efficient aspects of all creative organic beings. Right? That's why you can find where we diverge genetically on a tree of creation. They can literally look at the DNA and tell you at which point did the DNA diverge from this lesser species. But when you get to the human, we all mind.
Mm-hmm.
So as all mind, we got to be the head of all bodies. And all bodies are organic bodies, are animals.
Mm-hmm.
And the human is the head of the animals. It's what we call the transformer effect. Right? All of the totem animals of the ancient tribes come together the same way. This is why you see DMX Chief Zolo from the old Mesoamerican culture that the Mexican hairless dog is named after. Right? Then you got Tupac Amaru, the old panther, the incarnated panther totem who come in like the movie Black Panther, but there's still another totem animal that can make the move for the throne. Right? So then you see that he fight with the gorilla, well, the gorilla clan don't really want this shit. But when the panther ain't around to go get it, now the gorilla's gonna have to cover his back. Because you know what's happened together in order to overcome the obstacles put in front of us by whatever the opposition is. It's just that my job is to make all of these conjures be undone.
You talked about, we also talked about, this is an interesting concept I know a lot of people never heard of. When we talk about Earth and you talk about the Anunnaki, one of the first things people think about is the mining of gold. You talked about how the righteous people who walk the earth, a byproduct of having a righteous spirit, produces gold on the earth.
Yeah.
And a byproduct of unrighteous spirit produces oil. Could you, now that's some weird shit. Could you elaborate on that? For a lot of us, that's weird.
But we are accumulated stardust.
Yeah.
Right? When we walk on the earth as a righteous soul, the earth being naturally creates the gold. It's a heart chakra resonance that causes the reflection of the sun penetrating the organism, reaching the core of the earth, and it get trapped on the return in the veins of the earth as veins of gold. Right? The unrighteous, because they need time and temperature to develop, start out as the producing oil in the earth, because this is how the earth filters the dirt they do. So they turn it into capital. The oil need time, temperature, and pressure to become a piece of coal. And from a piece of coal, it moves as a dynamic diamond, as the most purified form of carbon, which is transparent. But it gives off the appearance of colors by the pigmentations of light that strike it. So it's a prism of light. And so those who come in, low vibrational beings, as they evolve, produces the oil as a side effect of their presence, striking they. So you can see what everybody is telling you, a piece of the puzzle, but they can't see the whole thing because we wasn't supposed to. So the conjure war is all of these sorcerers called priests. They do high magic. Warlocks do high magic, but warlock is not the person. Warlock is a condition that the people are in during the conjure war, where they're not allowed to access their wealth to deplete the natural resources of the land. And if you look, America has not traded its own oil pumped over here in Mexico and Texas and Arizona, etc. They haven't been trading in that oil because it's in a warlock, meaning it's held in abeyance until somebody remember the parameters of the contract. And this is the constitutional contract written in the blood of Crispus Attucks. That's why they got to always tell you he the first one to die in the so-called American Revolution, because they went behind our back after the the loyalists set up the Constitution to keep the British at bay, but the dirty Moors, or the ones who came over here to replace us, they went behind and wrote the blood oath in the contract to keep us bound to their constitutional agreement, because it's written that the blood of the righteous shall not be spilled in vain. So when we talk about a conjure war, it's all of these masters in the secret societies. Now, I got to make them close that stuff. The Haitian Revolutionary Conjure closed. The Broken Mirror Conjure to keep the matriarchs broken up closed. All of these, it's major conjures. Then you got people still right now trying to conjure stuff at the close of an age. And every priest know that when you try to conjure at the close of an age, you reap all of the negative energy from that conjure. This is sorcery at its finest. It's absolute sorcery. It's a conjure. It's voodoo. Well, voodoo is a bad terminology because they told us it was, but voodoo is actually nature science. And that's the only way you're going to see your way out of here. That's why they kept telling us voodoo was evil, to keep us from going back to our ancestral ways.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I talk about, the conjure war.
What's the difference between voodoo and hoodoo? Because you talk about the
that's denominational.
Listen, okay.
It's like being the difference between the Baptist and the Pentecostal, or Sunni and the Shia. It's denominational. Even when you say Santeria, they use different ways to express the organic culture in the enemy face, because he won't stop you from passing these keys down to the next generation. And this is what takes us to Dr. Clark.
Right.
He's a historian. He read history from angle of different writers around the world. And in the course of writing that history, he give us a position or an understanding of what we're dealing with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Rod, you said voodoo is nature science. I want to just to ask you about nature and what's going on with nature in this country right now. You know, you really do a good job representing this country in terms of telling us that this is our shit, when a lot of us, you know, look overseas for a homeland. And what do you think about the wildfires, the hurricanes hitting Cali? This country's getting tore the fuck up by nature.
We ain't the only one. We ain't the only ones.
Are we supposed to step in and stop, like do some meditation and try to stop the weather? Or are we supposed to let it just continue to do what it do? Like, how does this work in terms of
the weather is driven by the emotions of the matriarchs. And they call it when the elephant's swaying, it causes earthquakes. This is the sway of the matriarch. It's an old earth dance. When they got earthbenders, firebenders, waterbenders, airbenders, etherbenders, just like that movie Avatar.
Yeah.
Right. What we're seeing now is all of this is not natural. A lot of it is to create chaos, to keep us distracted from all of the government. That's about what it is. It's a lot of them where they trying to hold on to their last little sips of power, and they're trying to cause as much confusion on the way out as to who's working for the good and who's working for the bad, or who's working for the right and the wrong. Because when you boil this down, this is a kind of, meaning that when you come into the physical realm, everything is how the mind adjusts to that, or how the reality adjusts to the mind. The more minds become aware that the game of the gods is a fifth dimensional galactic chess game, and they use people on the earth to play the game, and then the so-called gods take the form of humans to be blind to what's going on, to see if they can figure out the solution to the game. They call it the keys to freedom.
I need you to explain a little bit about this fifth dimensional chess game between the gods. What are we talking about here? Like, where's this taking place at? Because we're projecting. Yeah.
The game is taking place all around you. The problem is because we've been so externally oriented, we can't see it. We go back to the Matrix when Morpheus was telling Neo that the world is the deception that's been pulled down over his eyes. That's the Matrix.
Yeah.
Right? So right now we in a holographic mind matrix. A holograph mean all parts is the same as the whole.
The whole, right.
Right. So we're trying to get to event horizon off of 100 monkey effect. Each one teach one, we all gonna reach some. Mm-hmm. Don't ask nobody shit. Go out and put your hands on the earth and ask her where you belong. And if you don't belong here, every circumstance in your life gonna lead you where you're supposed to be. Mm-hmm. It's just gonna align just like that because you have to tune into the earth for the earth to tell you where to be at. This is the same as birds flying south for the winter. Mm-hmm. We tread the land and we end up, I had to be in the right hand of the great mother, which is Michigan, right? The left hand salute is over the right hand. They call it the Upper Peninsula, right? So I had to be here in the right hand of the Mother Earth in order to be able to assimilate an energy frequency that's coming in on solar rays. So it's the symbol at the Joe Louis of the statue holding the sun in its hand. That's the symbol of the power of Michigan. Right. But the sun, fire can't burn the sun. Right? That's the saying. The fire can't burn the sun because it's composed of fire. Mm-hmm. Right? That's like a fire burning itself. Can't happen. It can't be too hot for itself. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right? So it's the same, all parts being part of the whole. Any one part, microcosm of the macrocosm. Mm. Right? This is your Renaissance man painting by Leonardo da Vinci. You see, you have the man's arm in 3 stages. Some of them have 2, some got 4, depending on what. All of that is different ways of looking at the galactic clock. In European culture, it's called the Grand Man. In our culture, it's called Tawaret, the Great Mother. So they flipped our culture over and gave us patriarchy to confuse us. Right? So the patriarchal agenda is a conquest agenda and it's a warring agenda. That's part of the game. Right? Toy soldiers. Pawns in the game. Mm-hmm. Right? So what we look at, the elders is telling us what they see, but they don't know what they're looking at. They tell us what they see, but they don't know what they're looking at when they telling us. We got to put enough for the elders' communications together in order to paint a picture of the elephant that they're looking at. Mm-hmm. Right? They call that raising the matriarchy. Mm-hmm. They all got to give you a piece. That's why the Marines, they say the POW, some gave all gave some. Everybody in this game, whether they want to be or not. Mm-hmm. Right? Most of us kicking and screaming, but we don't know that half of us came here just to kick and scream because we don't got nothing to kick and scream about in truth. Mm. It's all an illusion of the mind called misery. It's the chapter we in, Noble Drew Ali. Right? We in the chapter of misery because we are strong enough to endure the pain at the bottom. So we square off against the enemy as pawns, but we got to rise to the level of greatness in whatever we do. This is what they say, let your light shine in the world, right? And when your 2 eyes are one, the whole body is filled with light, and the light is the love of the world, right? So you bringing back, you turn into what starts out as a war story in the game of the gods on the chessboard ends up closing out as a love story. And then every story of the war story has turned into a love story, and that kills all opposition to greatness. The greatest love of all, remember? Learning to love yourself, the greatest love. They told you. They was telling you in the music because that's a blues note, blue house knot off of a Mississippi River backwood knocking. This is how they use, this is where blues singers come from. They ain't just come out the South and start singing the blues to the public because it was just something they wanted to do. They was trying to get money because there wasn't no money in it when they started it. And they still ain't paying the artists. That's the sharecropper agreement reenactment. So we'll know how our ancestors lost the land through sharecropper agreements through a crooked government. And they got meticulous records on it. They told us what they did. It's not no secret. They caught our elders up in sharecropper agreements, and then they destroyed product. So now they can't grow nothing this season. They got to double up on the loan next year, and on the third year they seize it for non-payment. They've been doing that since they've been here. Burning up the farms, burning up the record halls, trying to conceal the dirt. But you got people in the families that's always been record keepers. So they can go back 200 years in their direct family back to their land. Ain't none of this a secret to us, but because of the conjure war we in, and we don't understand the nature of it, is ignorance. Right? Bobby Hemming tell us, Bobby Hemming said, look, out of all of the melanated people of the world, there's something special about the ones from this land. Right? We the ones who are the creative men that love the women so passionately that we generate masculine forms of art.
Explain that. What do you mean? What do you mean?
The masculine forms of art is the martial arts. Okay. And then they get this spiritual energy that's extracted from that. Right? But the men do it in order to have a positive outlet for the rage of the masculine. If you can control the outlet, you can control the self. All that stuff is scripted. All them professional sports is scripted. But you know when it ain't? When you play in Little League. It's not scripted. Because you're trying to learn the game. And what else they teach you in the same age as Little League? Board games. These is giving you the rules to how to play the game called life, which takes you to a plutarchy, right? Which is a total domination of all in existence, right? That's the final conclusion of the game of the gods, right? So they tell you all of these examples to go by, but they don't never tell you what they mean, right? Then they get you caught up in moralism, right? That don't got nothing to do with us. We want to be good because it's the nature of those who come into the physical body. But those who wish to experience pain sometimes go bad because the pain drives them in the wrong direction. That's called taking the left-hand path. But how far are you going to go down the wrong path before you realize this ain't for me? Some people get in too deep. Right. So this is the parameters of this conjure war.
You know, Rod, you mentioned the sister Erin Lyons earlier, and we was talking about Lemuria. I'm interested in knowing. I've talked extensively with you in the past about Atlantis, but I don't think we've mentioned Lemuria and Mu. I believe that's the same thing. What's your thoughts on Lemuria and its connection to America? We've talked about Atlantis, but I believe Blavatsky said Lemuria was the third root race. Atlantis was the fourth. So Lemuria came before Atlantis. We talk about Atlantis, but people don't talk about Lemuria as much as they give Atlantis love. So what's your thoughts on Lemuria?
Well, they shifting away from Atlantis now and going to Tartaria. Right? Mu is a city. Atlantis is an empire. Mu is one of the first concentric cities that the matriarchs made, right? And when they decided to scale the project up, it evolved into what became Atlantis.
Where was
Atlantis is the city of Mu. It was on the island. The island is sank, right? But when they tell you Atlantis, the capital of Atlantis flew away. It didn't sink, right? When they telling you it sunk, it went the other direction. When they tell you that the Noah's Ark floated on the water, that's not what the books say. But nobody don't pay it no attention. They just go right over it. They say that Noah's craft was taken up into the sky, right? And most people is not going to ever see that. But it's not going to make sense unless you realize, how can New Jerusalem be coming back if it ain't never been here? Right? Which is also a hijacked terminology to mislead us from what they're talking about. When they call Jerusalem the city of peace, we talking about the capital city of Atlantis, which was a jumper. It was called a jumper ship, right? We didn't been through so many, everything you can think of has been true at some time or another on Earth. You can't think of nothing that never happened. It all happened. And it probably didn't happen exactly like people tell it, but the general outline of the story is still consistent with the historical record of the planet, because we went through this cycles and cycles on top of cycles. This is nothing new. Right? So we go through the cycles, and then when the cycle gets so bad, somebody got to clean it up. It got to be cleaned up at the close of every age.
Why did this capital move? Why did it sink?
It just the shifting of the land masses. But Atlantis flew away because of war. The capital of Atlantis flew away because of war. Mu sucked because over time it wasn't functional, because it was already at sea level. So when the sea level shifted, it just consumed it. You know it today as Bimini Road. Is the pathway to where Mu used to be. It's called the Bimini Road. But it had, every time we did this, we had satellite cities. That's why you see pyramids all over the world. But the pyramids started in the Americas. It's a purpose form that we're not going to get into, other than what people think. But when they start reactivating, it started to make sense because it pulls the hologram down. This is what don't nobody want. It's called lifting the veil. The veil between worlds is the realization that this shit is a game. We probably on the moon playing it here. You understand epigenetics, then you understand why Elijah Muhammad called us radioheads. We being projected into these bodies from somewhere else.
Right.
It's hard to tell where you being projected from while you in the body. But as soon as you get outside the body, you're like, God damn, man, I messed up again on the video game.
Yeah.
I was almost to the championship. I was almost to the championship level.
Just like that, huh?
I was finna save the princess from the dragon in Mario.
Wow. Like that, huh? Wow.
Yeah, but now you got to remember, if you're an eternal being, Malachi said this in Man from Planet Risk, you have to do something to occupy yourself for eternity. If you go to India, they have historical records with whole cycles cataloged, thousands and thousands of different, what they call great year cycles, right? The record is always here, but sometimes we scatter the record out for a cannonball run. You know what cannonball run is?
Yeah.
That movie?
Yeah.
Scavenger hunt. Hansel and Gretel. pick up the breadcrumbs, the water washed them away, but the energy's still there. Right? So you put down a different type of breadcrumb that don't dissolve in the rain. Right? It's an energy field. And none of this stuff new to us. We did this before. We did it so many different ways that now we acting like we haven't done it before because the particular types of conjures being used to strip the memory. Right? Like, you want to play that Dr. Clark video so I can show some of what I'm talking about?
Yeah, let me. Give me 1 second, y'all.
So Dr. Clark was a good friend to. So even if we don't like them, they have to educate themselves out of the amnesia in order to know how to close the conjure. They couldn't win because they couldn't remember how to close the conjure. So it was inevitable that they would lose because they now have to call on the same person the tribe's got to call on.
Who's them? Who are you
to come and explain okay, so it's feathers versus fezzes. The Moors who went into amnesia, all of their fezzes is in the George Washington Memorial. It's a fez, it's a little section of fezzes, right? And then all of the chiefs, the feather wearing chiefs of the land. We didn't walk around wearing feathers every day. That's ceremonial garb for ceremonial purposes, right? So they want to conceal the fact that the chiefs was already here fighting this war in the blind, just like they was. So now they have to put the information out in the public and reach out for the same person the chiefs got to reach out for. That's what was going on. It's a conjure war. It's a war of education. It's a war of erudition. Study yourself to show thyself approved. This is what it's all about. The making of a man, the great arcana, the great work, the building of solid man, the soul of man in order to inhabit the temple. This is what it's all about.
And so
all of the secret societies involved.
Who put the fezzes under the conjure now?
They did.
They put themselves under the conjure.